So we've got the safety, security, peace of mind. They want to be a little bit significant and have that title as an investor. They want to be part of a tribe. And yes, they want to make an income. They want that passive pref or that return that you can help them get. In addition to that, they know there's tax advantages in real estate because the government incentivizes all of us as multifamily investors to, give people a place to live and sleep. We've got the fact that they know that their dollar is going to better a building, better a community, help some tenant, improve the property, and so they can have a better standard of living. And ultimately, investors truly, at the end of the day, guys, they want freedom, just like you and I. So as you really start to go out there and talk to the investor, it's going to be important for you to understand and appreciate what it is that they want. And ultimately, you've got to give them what they want so that they can have it all in the deal. So in any event, who here wants to learn my 5-step process that will give you the competitive edge when talking to your investors about the deals? And when I say 5-step process that will give you the competitive edge, I mean that these are the 5 things that you must do in the right order to really go out there and show the investor that you know who you are, what you're doing, how they can come in and find a mutually beneficial arrangement to, invest in your deal. And we know it works, So this presentation is for you if you possess these 4 qualities. Number 1, you've got to be committed to going out there and raising capital, and that's a defiant commitment, not expecting your partners or everyone else to do it. I think it's best if you commit to doing it, and then you can also solicit help from other people. Number 2, you got to be decisive. You got to know how much capital you're going to raise and by when. And you've got to set that goal and you've got to go after it and achieve it. Number 3, I want you to be coachable today because I want you to empty your cup and allow me to help you fill it back up. And then number 4, you must be resourceful because again, we often say in coaching that it's never a matter of resources, but it's a matter of resourcefulness. Okay? And who this presentation is not for, well, if you're not committed, if you're not decisive, if you're uncoachable, and you think you know it all, you can exit this room right now and, go watch Netflix or something. But honestly, I want all of you to stay here and I want to be playful. But I also want to impress upon you that I know what I'm talking about because I've been doing this for quite a while as an investor myself and as a Master Platinum coach. So as I go through my presentation, if you find yourself saying, okay, Trevor, I already know that, I want you to ask yourself this one question. Am I applying it when I'm out there talking to investors and raising capital for my deals? So I really want you to check in with yourself and be honest with yourself and say, okay, I'm doing a little bit of that, but maybe there's a way I could do it better because that's what we're here today is to elevate your game and take you to the next level. Something else I'll be revealing today is, yes, you know this guy, who wants to learn the number 1 thing that has made my client, my friend, my partner, Joe successful? Joe Fairless, because I'm going to be revealing that near the end of my presentation. And I think some of you know Joe and a lot of you who don't, you definitely want to listen to the keynote that he kicked off this conference with earlier today. It was phenomenal as he talked about leadership and really, the 7 keys to going out there and being an investor. So great job there. And well, how do I know what Joe's story has been? Well, again, I've been coaching Joe since 2013. And guys, this was before the Best Ever podcast. This was before he wrote the books, before he put on the conferences. And so I've had a unique opportunity to watch Joe grow. And I've helped him grow, and it's been an amazing ride. We've literally, done a lot of amazing things together. And believe it or not, along that journey, I've seen him hit some speed bumps as well when it comes to, raising capital and dealing with investors. So fast forward today, if you don't know Joe, well, now he controls over $600 million worth of multifamily real estate. That's over 6,000 doors as of today. That's incredible. He has the longest running daily real estate podcast on the planet. He's the successful author of the Best Ever Apartment Syndication book, which Dan held up earlier today. And I highly recommend, if you folks haven't picked that up, it's an absolute must read. He puts on incredible multifamily conferences, and he is such a philanthropist that he also donates his time and money to worthwhile causes and charities. And it's not just Joe that's applied what I'm about to teach you. There are other rock stars that I've coached. Many of them are right here in this summit presenting today, tomorrow, and the next day. Guys like Danny Randazzo, Julie Lamb, Tyler Chesser, love Tyler. Mr. Adam AAA Adams, love Adam. Holly Williams, Scott Bauer, Andrew Campbell, Evan Holliday, Annie Dickerson, and yes, Mr. Todd Dexheimer. So these people are absolute rock stars in their own right. And one more important note, that in addition to them, I've helped thousands of other business people, investors, scale their portfolios using OPM. Yes, other people's money. And my clients have collectively done deals now totaling over $1 billion. Yes, that's with a B. And so think about that as we unleash today's conversation, because again, we often say that, you know what, where there's commitment, there's an opportunity to scale and grow. And I'm committed to helping other people just like you follow that same path to success, because the bottom line is, and this comes from our great friend, Mr. Tony Robbins, success leaves clues. And you want to write that down, because I go through these 5 things with you today. If you apply them in the right order at the right times, you're going to hear a lot more yeses than I think I'll pass on this one. So my promise to you is by the end of this, you're going to be able to go out there and apply these proven methods and use them immediately to start taking your capital raising skills to the highest levels possible. And so again, who am I and how can I, support this? Well, again, my name's Trevor McGregor. I am a master real estate coach and mentor. I'm a high performance business strategist. I coach Fortune 500 executives, business owners, even professional athletes and Olympians. I've done over 20,000 coaching sessions. That's an actual statistic. I'm a professional real estate speaker. But most importantly, I am a real estate investor, and I do a lot of different things in real estate, including multifamily investing, self-storage investing. I invest in land. My wife and I co-own a luxury resort in Costa Rica. And I'm telling you that I believe that real estate is the greatest wealth vehicle on the planet to go out there and make an impact and an income that rivals any other vehicle that does it. And so I just want to give a shout out to some of the folks that, I've invested in deals with, like Joe Fairless, owning apartments in, Dallas, Texas. Guys like Dan Hanford and Danny Randazzo and Brandon Abbott. Some of their deals I've been in on. Same thing with Julie Lamb and Annie Dickerson, Dave Thompson, Andrew Campbell. Just did a deal with Todd Dexheimer. So I don't just talk the talk, folks. I walk the walk. And so I want to press upon you that it's not about me today. It's really about sharing some of the best practices that I've used and that my clients have used to go out there and absolutely crush it. I should also let you know that I was fortunate enough to work for the man. Yes, I worked with and for Tony Robbins for over half a decade as one of his top coaches on the planet. I was a life coach and business strategist for Tony, and absolutely got my black belt in really understanding why people succeed in business and in real estate, and then again, why people fail. So anyway, enough about all of that. Let's talk about you and let's talk about Rapid. So if you're ready to follow in the footsteps of Joe Fairless and in the footsteps of some of my other most successful clients, I want you to get rid of all distractions, put your phone on silent, shut the door, close down Facebook just for a minute, and grab a pen and a journal, as you're going to want to take some of these notes and write it down, as it is absolutely powerful beyond belief. And here's the real problem, folks. It's not you. So if you're going out there and talking to real estate investors and they're not giving you the cash, it's not you. It's just that you've never had a recipe or a blueprint on really, what to say or how to talk to them. And that changes right now. I'm going to give you the blueprint that allows you to go out there and crush it. Because I don't want you to go into those meetings where, these are what's ringing in your ears. Number one, it's going to be tough to find an investor or find money. Does that sound familiar to you right now? It certainly does to a lot of people. How about this one? Why would someone ever invest with me? Have you thought about that at some point? How about this one? Other syndicators have way more experience. Why would they come into my deal when they could go into someone else's, right? What if I lose their money? Does that sound familiar? Because we're humans, and you know what? We have this hypervigilance at times that will allow us to really, ask questions like this. What if they think I'm not experienced enough? Or why are my soft commitments saying yes, and then a week later, they're not following through and they're saying, you know what, I'd rather, hold off on this one. So again, if these sound familiar to you, they're familiar to a lot of us, but it doesn't have to be that way. There's even a couple more. There's a few more that I just want to touch on here. What about these? Have you ever set aside time to make telephone calls to your investors, but then you get that old call reluctance? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. You set aside some hours, you've got a list of people to call, and when it comes time, you get up and you go look in the refrigerator for something to eat, and you don't make those calls, right? What about having good intentions of going to meetings or meetups or re-eggs, but canceling at the last minute, thinking, there's going to be nobody there that I can talk to or that's at my level? Sound familiar? Or this one, do you ever have imposter syndrome and go out there and when you want to ask someone for money, you feel like a fraud? Because again, these are real guys. And I'm here today to absolutely kick these to the curb with you and tell you it doesn't have to be this way. It's time to get rid of all of these because they don't serve you. And if you're going to go out there and live your dream, you've got to obliterate these from your mindset. So with that said, the other thing is before you do anything, you must always know your outcome. In fact, that was one of Joe's key components to his speech earlier today. And I'm going to teach you the 4 different things that you'll really want to know are in play as you work towards your outcome. And number 1, when asking for money, I want it to feel good. I want you not to think it's sleazy or underhanded or, undermined or any of those things. I want you to feel good about it. I mean, think about this. You're giving someone a unique opportunity to look at a deal that they can put money in, that they're going to get a preferred rate of return on, and then at disposition, they're going to participate in the upside in a magnificent way. I wouldn't feel bad about presenting that to someone. I'd want to feel good. And I want it to be good for you. If you're going to all this work to vet deals and you're going to all this work to look for investors, I want you to have a little bit of the piece of the pie there. So number 1, it's got to feel good. And number 2, it's got to be good for you. Number 3 is it's got to be good for others. That means it has to be good for your investors, your partners, everyone else that's in play. And when you find all 3 of those, it usually leads to number 4, which is it's good for the greater good. So what does that mean? Well, it means that it's good for the building. It's good for the community. It's good for the property manager, the plumbers, the electricians, the landscapers. I mean, all the people that participate in making that community better. So really think about this because these are the 4 keys that I want you to really own as you go out there and talk to people about raising capital. It was just like Joe's story. Joe's very first property, when he did his first ever syndication and bought his apartment community, he paid just over $6 million for it using, yes, other people's money. Was it easy? No. Was it simple? Yes. Because sometimes you got to get out there and kiss a few frogs to find the prince. But the investors for every deal are out there. And it's time for another great quote. And we all love Robert Kiyosaki. In fact, I don't know any real estate investor that hasn't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And this great quote from Robert reads that the richest people in the world build networks where everyone else is trained to look for work. And it's true. So I want you to think about your own, world right now. Are you out there looking to build more networks? Are you looking to increase your investor pipeline? Are you willing to go out there and do whatever it takes to go to that level? Because if you're not, you're going to have a hard time scaling to where we know you could scale to. So where are these potential investors? Well, we know a lot of them start out with family and friends. I know I sure did when I started in real estate. There's work colleagues, there's meetup groups, real estate action groups, country clubs like the local golf clubs, professional associations. But then you also want to think in terms of being niche specific. What about doctors? What about dentists, chiropractors, franchise owners, anybody that is literally making money, but maybe so busy being on the tools, that they don't have a chance to really understand and appreciate that there are deals right there in their backyard that they could step into. The other thing that I really want you to own is really own, your podcasts and your real estate events. I mean, if you're dabbling, you're going to always get results that equal a dabbler. But if you're listening to Dan's podcast and Joe Fairless and some of the other rock stars out there, you're going to absolutely soak up the certainty, clarity, and confidence you need to approach other listeners to those podcasts or other people at those events. And that's oftentimes where the greatest business partnerships are formulated. So I want to impress upon you that you've got to really check in with yourself and ask yourself, are you interested in that or are you committed to it? It's almost like I say to my clients every time at this year, it's like we're playing in the Super Bowl and we just finished the first quarter and the second quarter of the game. Now we're going into the locker room for halftime. There's going to be fireworks on the 4th of July, and we're going to come out of the locker room and play in the Super Bowl quarter number 3 and quarter number 4 between now and December 31st, 2019. And I want you to think about how you played the first half of your Super Bowl game this year and now set the intention for what you might want to do differently in quarter 3 and quarter 4, because those who fail to plan to fail. And with that said, the absolute truth, guys, is your network will determine your net worth. You've heard it before. You're hearing it from Coach Trevor again, that it is the absolute truth. And when you really look at guys that are successful like Dan and Danny and Brandon and Joe and some of the other rock stars that I popped up on the screen, you know, they're always about finding deals and they're all about building their investor networks. And that's it, you know, and being the best version that they can be. And more on that in a little bit. So the top 2 distinctions that you must take away even before we get into the 5-step rapid process are these. Number 1, that these relationships are literally the lifeblood of your real estate business. And number 2, my best clients truly understand that they're not in the real estate business, but that they are in the relationship business. And so are you. So on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, how are you showing up in your current relationships with your investors? Maybe let's ask, how are you showing up in going out there and looking for new investors? So either way, what I'm about to share with you is going to help you communicate at a level that is superior to where you've been showing up with those peeps. All right? And you know that once you find them, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And that's also true. And again, I've seen people be wildly successful the first time they speak to an investor. And yes, I've seen people fall flat on their face. And it doesn't have to be that way, guys, because we've got a group of like-minded people here sharing best practices. So if you really double down here and pay attention, you're going to have some aha moments and some takeaways that I think are really going to land with you. And you can tell I'm a master platinum coach because I keep throwing these great quotes into the mix here. And here's one from Mark Twain, and he says, "A powerful agent is the right word. Whenever we come up upon one of those intensely right words, the resulting effect is physical as well as spiritual and electrically prompt." So what the hell does that mean? Well, I'm going to simplify it for you. When you say the right things in the right order, at the right time, for the right reason, that's when investors get excited and they say, yes, let's do this. And again, if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time for the wrong reason, they might just pass on you and go look for another deal. So with that said, the other wrong thing that I see a lot of is where, unfortunately, most investors who are out there raising capital end up vomiting all over the investor. And I know it's a little bit of a disgusting analogy, and some of you just had lunch, but it's the absolute truth. You go out there and you go, oh my God, I got to show you this deal. It's so good. Here's the street it's on. Here's how much it is. Here's how many doors it is. Will you invest with me? Please, please, please. And we don't do that as professional real estate investors. That comes with a getting energy. That comes with a begging energy. That comes with a pleading energy. And that's not what we do to raise capital. So for any of you that have been out there vomiting on your investors, I'm going to invite you to stop right now, pay attention to the 5-step rapid process, and really unleash your power. And to make it real simple, I've really just taken those letters and chunked it down into this simple acronym called RAPID, the 5 simple steps to raising unlimited capital. And so we're going to go through each letter of RAPID. The R, the A, the P, the I, and the D all stand for something. Make sure you take great notes, and then we'll be taking questions at the end of the call. So let's kick it off with the R, because as you all know, nothing happens in sales or in communication without a level of rapport. Okay, more on that in a minute. Let's go to the A. The A is for the agenda. It's where you say, hey, Mr. Investor, I appreciate your time today. And I'm excited to share with you a unique opportunity that I think you may be well interested in coming in and putting in some money into the deal. So now we've built some rapport and we've told them what the conversation is going to be about. And then we move to the P, which is probing with questions. I'll talk about that in just a minute, because we can't just, barf all over them about what the deal is. We got to find out a little bit about who they are. Have they had any real estate investment experience? Are they active? Are they passive? Again, more on that in a minute. The I is for identifying the opportunity. Yes, now you get to go in and show them your deck. You get to show them your PPM. You get to show them all of the nuts and bolts of what the deal is about. And then the very final letter in RAPID, the D, is for the decision. That is where they're literally going to say yes, no, or maybe. And again, let's get into this and let's discuss them all at a deeper level right now, because as I said earlier, R is for rapport. And nothing good ever happens in communication without establishing rapport. I mean, think about that. Would you just go up to someone and say, hey, do you want to invest in a deal? Or would you go up to them and absolutely, meet them where they're at? Because it's all about building trust and camaraderie and finding something that is like-minded or something that's in, common or of mutual interest. Dan Hanford has kids. I have kids. Dan's a real estate investor. I'm a real estate investor. Dan loves to travel with his wife and his family. I love to travel with my wife and family. So I might, start up a conversation. Hey, Dan, I know that you and the kids are probably going away somewhere in the summer. Where are you off to? Right? And again, then I might share where I'm going. And then it builds this trust and camaraderie before we get to the next letter of RAPID. Does that make sense? The A in RAPID, guys, is so important, and most people miss this. Most people jump from the R to the P. But you've got to, touch the A here, and the A is for the agenda. It's letting them know the outcome of the meeting or the conversation, right? It's establishing a possibility of a mutually beneficial arrangement. And it's letting them know that you're actually unattached to the outcome. Whether they come in or not is irrelevant. You're going to do your best to present the opportunity, and if they like it, great. And if they don't, great. There's lots of fish in the sea. And once you're done the report and you've agreed to the agenda and they say, yeah, I'd love to see what you got, we then move to the P in RAPID, and that is for probing with questions. Yes, the P is for probing. And probing with questions is super important, because here's a secret, guys. Not all real estate investors are created equal. Some are newbies, some are intermediates, some are experts. Some of these people are professional underwriters or accountants or CPAs. Some are attorneys, and some don't have any idea what the deal entails. So again, by probing with questions, you want to ask, before I show you the deal, John, have you ever invested in real estate syndication before? Find out what their model of the world is. Were they active or were they passive? Did they invest in state or in out of state? Because these are all important for you as you get ready to share your opportunity with them. And would they have a good experience in real estate or not so much? And what this does is it opens up the absolute understanding of what level of an investor they might be, so you don't make yourself look like an idiot going, well, here's how it works. Maybe they know how it works. So I really encourage my clients to really work on the rapport, the agenda, and the probing. And then we can move to the I, but we're not there yet. Because when we're probing, what we're looking for, again, is called their MOW. You want to write that down. And their MOW is what we call their model of the world. It's the lens they see through. And some people see through green lenses, and some people see through yellow lenses, and some people see through pink lenses. And ultimately, it's just like anything else. The best way to support somebody is to understand what's important to them or the model of the world that they have. So that's something that probing also supports you to do. Does that make sense? So then we move to the I in RAPID. And yes, the I is for identifying the opportunity. This is where you actually get to share with them the nuts and bolts of the deal. Excuse me. You also get to share, well, where is the deal? How many doors is it? How much is it? What are the projected returns? And I'm not going to get into all of the details. There's far greater experts in this community that can share with you all of those things, but I am going to touch on it that you've got to know exactly what they're interested in learning. You might want to show them your slide deck. You might want to print it out. You might want to give them all the goods so that they can make an informed decision. Does that make sense? And then you move to the final letter in RAPID, and yes, that's the D, where it becomes a decision. And I like to also call it a decision with a deadline, because here's the truth. You want to say something like, based on everything we went over today, John, are you ready to join us in this deal? Right? Or how much would you like to come in with? You want to put in 50K, 100, 200? What are you thinking? I'm curious, right? And you always want to check in with timing. And I see a lot of investors fail to do this. You know, John, is this a sooner thing for you or a later thing? I mean, do you have the money available such that you could, come in before the deadline, or do you have to get it out of your 401k, or, do you got to get your wife to bless the deal? Or if you're talking to a woman, maybe she's got to get her husband to bless the deal. So ultimately, when we go through the D, the decision with the deadline, it's where you understand and appreciate, what might be coming out of their account, and I'm telling you, if you do this every time, you're going to start to see where people have similar comments, similar thoughts, and you're going to start to notice patterns like Joe Fairless does. So again, you also have to be ready to handle questions. And I find that sometimes people go in and they just want to share the deal, but they get a little bit reserved when it's time to answer some of the specific questions. And they might be common questions. They might be what I call curveballs, and even on the commitments. If they've got commitments or a commitment and they say, well, I'd like to perhaps come in with 50K. Is that a soft commitment or is it a hard commitment? You've got to be able to flush that stuff out, because again, we have to impress upon you that you need to know what your capital raise goals are and what's coming in. You're also going to have to deal with what we call common objections. Yes, we all do. They might have an objection to the preferred return that you're offering. They might say, well, your minimums are 50 or 100 grand. What if I put in 25? Lots of times they'll throw what we call the spouse objection. That is, I never ever get into anything like this without checking with my significant other. Some of them will say, I need to check with my financial planner. Some people will say, I need to check with my grandmother. It doesn't matter. Sometimes it's real, and sometimes it's a smokescreen. And the more time in the saddle you guys have, the more you'll be able to flush it out. But one of the big ones is the time objection. Well, let me think about it. You guys ever heard that? Let me think about it. And ultimately, a powerful investor would say, hey, I can appreciate you want to think about it. How much time do you need? Do you need a day or two? I mean, what are we talking about here? And so if they need a day or two, the goal is to timestamp, we'll talk about that in a minute, a follow-up call or a follow-up meeting. Don't leave it open and loose-ended, guys. You're cheating yourself and them out of coming into great deals. Does that make sense? So if they do say, yes, I'm in, you also have to be ready to do something I call the button down. That is where you literally say, I am so excited to have you come in. I want you to circle today's date on the calendar, because this is a day that you'll never forget as we take your money, pool it with our other investors, and go out there and make a ton of impact and a ton of income for everyone. You want to talk about next steps. You want to talk about deadlines. You want to really talk about time stamping everything. Confirm the amount. Don't assume you heard it the first time. Say, to clarify, Dan, so what I heard you say is you're coming in with 100K. Did I get that right? And again, never assume. And all of this stuff is so important for you guys to do every time on each and every investor occasion. So again, the rapid process overview for you again is the R is for rapport. Nothing ever good happens without establishing rapport. Number 2, set the agenda for what the meeting is about, whether you're in person or on the telephone or on a Zoom call or a Skype call or a WhatsApp call. Probe them with some simple questions. Hey, before we begin, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? Identify the opportunity, that is, show them the amazing deal that you've got. And then ultimately the D is the decision with the deadline. So again, there's a few other important points that I want to make sure we talk about today to give you, again, that competitive edge. And we're now going to talk about, yes, terminology. Because knowing the key real estate terminology is also extremely important for you guys, right? And, I was listening to Holly Williams, a good friend of mine and one of my clients, in another room on another call here today. And she really talked about how you don't need to know it all, but you need to know the key ones because, again, it's going to come up in conversation. Some of those can be, things like, what is a cap rate? What is a gross rent multiplier? How about IRR? Capital expenditure? Economic occupancy? What about recourse or non-recourse? Do you guys know what that means? What's a general partner? Who is it? How about a cash-on-cash return? A capital expense? The due diligence process? Loss to lease? An equity investment? Earnest money? NOI? Bridge loans? Pref return rates or preferred return rates? I mean, I could go on, but there's just a few here that you guys will definitely want to check out. Because at the end of the day, remember what I said. The quality of your outcome depends on the quality of your commitment to show up and learn this stuff. And if you don't know what something means, don't bullshit them. Say, you know what? That's a great question. Let me check with my partner and my coach and I'll get back to you. There's no shame in that. We're all human. We all start somewhere, but ultimately there are tons of people in this MFIN Summit for you to learn that from. There's a great real estate glossary on Google. I don't know if you guys heard about this little thing called Google. It's pretty cool, but you can type terms into there or go to the real estate glossary. Or again, we brought up Joe Fairless's book and the absolute plethora of terminology in that book, especially that he's put together on the back pages, will blow your mind. So again, you also want to really think about this, guys, and this is what I call holding the doctor frame. Holding the doctor frame. And imagine you going into a clinic or a hospital. Let's say you really hurt your shoulder. You got an open wound on your shoulder. You got a bleeding neck problem here. You want to go in and find a doctor that is absolutely capable of supporting your outcome, right? And holding that doctor frame is where you learn how to speak with more certainty, clarity, and confidence. Just like that doctor, he says, I'm Dr. Jones. I see you've hurt your shoulder. I'll be taking care of you right now. We've got you. We're going to absolutely support you in every way that we can. And at the end of the day, he's figuring out, does Trevor need a Band-Aid for his shoulder? Does Trevor need, maybe a cast for his shoulder? Does Trevor need, surgery for his shoulder? Or in some extreme circumstances, maybe we got to amputate the thing. But the same thing applies to you. You've got to hold the superior frame if you can and show up to give them that certainty, clarity, and confidence, because I call this transference. And you all know what transference is because you've all been with real estate investors that had positive transference, where you felt the certainty, the clarity, and the confidence ooze out of them. And I'll probably bet that you felt negative transference, where you thought it'll be a cold day if I invest in this guy's deal, right? So again, to recap, transference is where you show up with that investor with so much certainty, so much clarity, and so much confidence that they feel like you're the expert and they say yes in terms of coming into the deal with you. Does that make sense? So I want all of you to think on a scale of 1 to 10 right now. Where is your level of transference? And for some of you that are experts, honor the fact that you've paid your dues. For some of you that are intermediate, maybe there's some room for improvement. And for some of you that are new, we all have to start off somewhere. But give it a number and let's set the, intention that the second half of the Super Bowl here, the next 6 months of 2019, we're going to absolutely increase our levels of transference no matter what level we're at. Because here's the truth. It's like flying an airplane, guys. And if you want to get from where you are to where you want to be, you must have a flight plan. No airplane on the planet takes off without a flight plan. You've got to know where you're starting from, and you've got to know where you're going. And again, most real estate investors don't have a flight plan. They're out there hoping an investor says yes. Or they're wasting precious time vomiting all over investors instead of using a proven roadmap like the rapid process. Or even when an investor says yes and gives you that soft commitment, lots of times they're going to back out a week later and say, I'm just not feeling great about it anymore. So again, the rapid process prevents a lot of that from happening so that you don't have to go out there and bang your head against the wall. So let me ask you, if you went out there and took these 5 steps, the rapid process, and you started applying it in your business, how smooth would your flight be now? I mean, take a look at this guy. Do you think he's got any worries, or do you think that he is, shown up committed, decisive, coachable, and resourceful? He's applied the rapid process with his investors, and now life looks a lot different. And when you start using it over and over, this is what it's like when you get really good at using the rapid process. I love that. So if you're ready to have a breakthrough when it comes to raising capital, and if you really want to build massive momentum, you owe it to yourself to start practicing the rapid process right now. And here's something that's really fun. You can start practicing today. Even if you don't have an investor meeting today, you can start practicing now with your significant other. Let's say once today's summit is over, you leave your office and you go, speak to your wife or your husband. Picture that in your mind right now. And you build a little rapport. You ask them, hey, how was your day, sweetheart? And they say, well, it was great. How was your day? And you go, it was awesome. I attended the MFIN summit and Dan Hanford and his crew really knocked it out of the park, right? And then next thing you know, what's going to come up tonight, guys, is there's going to be an agenda. Hey, I'm hungry. Should we cook at home or should we go out to eat? Let's go out to eat. So now we've got rapport with our significant other. We've agreed to the agenda that we're going to go out for supper. And now it's time to probe them. So may I ask, what do you feel like eating? Do you want to go for steak? Do you want to go for pizza? Do you want to go for Italian? I mean, what do you feel like having? Mexican? Great, let's do it, right? You identify the Mexican restaurant you're going to take them to, and you decide to leave at 6:30. How cool is that? You just practiced the rapid process today before this day ended. And guys, it's that simple. Don't overthink this. You're already doing this, probably with your spouse, your kids, your business colleagues, but this is a framework that will allow you to do it in this order every time so that you get to your ultimate outcome. And I also want to point out that when you go out there to do this with investors, it's a lot like flipping over cards. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, it's really like flipping over cards from a deck of cards. And I think you're all pretty smart. I mean, if I were to ask, how many cards are there in a deck? There are 52 cards in a deck of cards. So sometimes you'll get an investor, and that's like flipping over a card where you flip over it and it's a 2 and they don't come into your deal. Or maybe you go meet with another investor and you flip over the card and it's a 3 and they're not a good fit. And then you flip over a card with another investor and they're a 7 and they don't, come into the deal either. And then you get a 6 and then you get an 8 and then you get one that looks really good and that's a 10, but in the end, their money's tied up and they just can't come into the deal. But if you keep flipping over enough cards, guys, if you keep getting out there and meeting with these investors, you'll get out there and find an ace. Yes. And an ace is when an investor says, yes, Dan, I'm in. Let's do this, right? And there are tons of aces in every deck of cards. So if you have to put together 2 decks or 3 decks or 4 decks, guys, it's just a reminder that you got to keep flipping cards to find the investors. And you get a great investor, then this deal comes together and you've got yourself a pretty nice property. But you're not done yet. Now you're going to go do your next deal. And you keep flipping cards, lots of cards, just like going out there to find deals with brokers is flipping over cards. And you keep flipping and flipping and flipping and flipping, and then you find, yes, another ace. Guys, this is exactly what's happening. And the aces, they're in their places and they're available and they want to come in and do deals with you right now. But do you believe they're out there? Because I'm telling you, go buy a deck of cards today, and if there's not an ace of spades in it, you might want to go back and talk to the store owner. And when you get really good at flipping over cards and having these investor conversations like Dan Hanford, Danny Randazzo, Brandon Abbott, Joe Fairless, some of the other rock stars, you get paid on aces and kings. Now you are finding aces and kings that are coming into your deal. That's pretty cool. And when you get really, really, really good, guys, you get paid on aces, kings, queens, and jacks. Imagine going out there and having investor conversations where you're hearing, yes, I'm in. Yes, let's do that. Yes. How much can I contribute? Can I bring some other people in with me? Are you open to referrals? Well, that's what happens when you play this game, and I want you to go out there and win this game. And one final point I'd like to make for all of you, guys, there's never been a better time to raise capital and buy real estate. And I'm not kidding. In fact, there are two things right now that are truly exciting in multifamily, and I call these the double wave of opportunity. You might want to write this down. And the double wave of opportunity is as follows. The first wave is this, that there's never been a better time to take advantage of all the baby boomers out there who are selling their multifamily apartments. And there are deals popping up all over the place every day. Today, some mom and pop is getting ready to unload and take the money off the table while the market's still decent. Today, a mom and pop is getting ready to sell the properties and move to Florida and retire. Today, some mom and pop, unfortunately, one of them is being diagnosed with cancer or heart disease, and the other spouse doesn't want to run the property, so they sell it. You know, somewhere today, a mom and pop who wants to give the building to, their children, find that their children are fighting over it, and they just want to sell it and give the proceeds to the kids. So that's the first wave, and I really want you guys to understand and own that. The second wave is this, and here's a chart, compliments of Marcus and Millichap, want to give them a shout out, that shows the 5-year millennial population growth, and notice that it leans south and west, because we know that millennials are just not as committed as previous generations are about owning houses. In fact, they'd rather rent. And folks, these millennials are renting apartments in record numbers all over this beautiful country. So if you look at the map, where you see the yellow and green dots is where they're going. And believe it or not, the orange or the red dots are shrinking a little bit. So a little insider, support there on this plan. Because the $1 million question that I want to ask you is this. Are you ready to take advantage of both of these once-in-a-lifetime opportunities and catch both those waves before you miss out? Think about that right now. The best time to buy is always right now in any economy when you use the fundamentals that Dan and Danny and Brandon use, that Joe uses, that a lot of the rock stars use. So I really want you to own that. And if you're on the fence about trying the rapid process, which I don't know why you would be at this stage, let me give you some wisdom that I truly believe will serve you. And I want all of you to go out on the screen of your mind 5 years from now. It's 2019. And you're going to go out 5 years on the screen of your mind right now. And literally, you're going to meet your future self there. In fact, you're going to talk to your future self. I always call this your best self, your highest self. And my question is, what wise advice would your future self give you right now about using the rapid process to raise all the capital you need to get into deals? I think you know what it would say to you. Go do it. And imagine what's possible, folks. Think of what's possible 5 years from now, because the time is going to come and the time is going to go, and I want you to capture it. So as I get ready to wrap up today, I promised I'd share with you the proven 5-step rapid process with you. We've gone over how to hold the doctor frame and speak with more transference. We've gone over the common objections that you'll hear when speaking to investors. I've mentioned how important it is to know the syndication terminology. We've gone through the flipping over the cards analogy. I hope you like that one. It's one of my favorites as a coach. And I've hammered home that success leaves clues. So now you have a choice. You can move on to the next session after this and forget all of this stuff, or you can make a commitment to try out the rapid process during your next investor meeting. But even prior to that, try it tonight with your significant other, or certainly, as you unleash yourself in the 4th of July festivities next week. And if there's one thing I know, it's that it's not just the information I provided that's important. It's the application of the information that's important. Because if it were just the information alone, guys, every librarian in the US would be a multimillionaire. And they're not, because it's the application of the information that's important. So you can see that I really mean what I'm talking about here. And so the final thing is, remember the bonus distinction that I promised? Yeah. I told you I'd share the number one secret that has made Joe Fairless successful. And here it is. And that's Joe's ability to show up as what I call a master of influence. Yes, write that down, a master of influence. And Joe's master of influence comes from him being authentic, trustworthy, sincere, caring, and yes, transparent. So think about that for yourself. You know, are you all of those things? And if you are, great, give yourself a pat on the back. And if you're not, you know, I really want you to capture those and set the intention that you're going to start being absolutely authentic, trustworthy, sincere, caring, and transparent with everybody in your sphere of influence. And I want to leave you with my favorite quote. This is my all-time favorite quote. It comes from Mr. Jim Rohn. If you don't know Jim Rohn, he was Tony Robbins' coach. And he says this: don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. I'm going to say it again because I just freaking love it. It's up here in my coaching office. It says, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. And guys, the rapid process is something that you can use to get better. So have fun with it. Go out there and, you know, absolutely use it to the best of your ability. And let's all raise the capital that we know can fund all the deals you've ever wanted. So for some of you that do want to connect and talk a little bit more about this or how a coaching structure could support you, it's really easy to find me. You can reach out to me at my website, www.trevormcgregor.com. Or if you want to set up an actual call with me and you're serious about it, I'll have a complimentary 45-minute time slot waiting for you at www.coachwithtrevor.com. You can enter your name, your details. Obviously, there's only so many, calls I can do at any given time. So there might be a little bit of a waiting list, but absolutely blessed and grateful to connect with all of you and help take your game to the next level. So Dan, that's it for today, my man, and I'll be open to take some questions.
Sure. So right now we're going to open it up for questions and answers. So if you have a question for Trevor, this is your opportunity. This is your time to be able to post that question, and make sure you post that question inside of the Q&A box that is there on the platform here. One thing I want you to do, Trevor, is if you could go back to that one slide. I know you just took it on your screen, but if you could go back to that slide with the Master of Influence with Joe Fairless on there that you had just mentioned, I want to look at that list again. And what I would like for you to do is when we have that list to look at in your coaching sessions that you have had with various people in the real estate industry that are trying to show up as a master of influence and meeting these 5 things, what would you say is maybe the number one thing of this list of things that people struggle with the most?
Oh, well, it's such a great question. And I find that different people struggle with all of these. But if there's a key theme here, it's really about transparency. It's really where we go out there and we try to be something that we're not. It's like somebody asking you a question and you try to bullshit your way through it instead of saying, you know what, that's a great question and I want to be completely open and honest with you, that I want to get you the right answer for that. And I'm going to reach out to my coaches and mentors. Maybe that's Dan or Danny or Brandon or Joe or someone else. But I'm always of the belief that the most authentic, the most transparent, people are going to be the leaders that go out there and absolutely amass fortunes in real estate rather than people that, think they know it all. Does that resonate with you, Dan?
Yes, it does. And I think, when you mentioned transparency there, I actually had this thought a couple of days ago as I was doing some research on various syndicators' websites. And there are several websites that syndicators have that, promote their properties and their opportunities that they have coming up and, invest with me. And you go to their About Us page and there's no pictures of them. There's no pictures of who's on their team. It's like just some additional information about what a syndication is and how it works and stuff like that. But it doesn't have anything about their story or, and I feel like that's part of being transparent too, is sharing your story, telling people who you are, making sure that you know about what's happening in your life. And, one of the things that we just did recently is our team just did a video shoot, and we actually started to, on our bios that we're going to be putting on our website for our group, we actually talk about things that we like to do for fun, things that are part of our families, and then trying to connect with people on a little bit different level than what other people are. I think that's one of the biggest things I think you hit on the head there is that transparency.
Oh, you're so spot on. And you know it, Dan. I know it, and everybody knows it. And ultimately, when I talk about the level of transference, that is the certainty, the clarity, and the confidence, you're spot on. It doesn't just come from meetings and, investor pitches. It comes from websites. It comes from, social media. It comes from, is this a real human being? And we know that Dan and Danae are real human beings with real kids, that literally are just like everyone else. Put on your pants one leg at a time. And that's one of the reasons I personally invested with you and your tribe. I believe that you guys are the real deal. And in fact, what I love about your tribe is that it's not all about you. It's not like, well, let's go out there and do this just for us. It's like, let's engage, inspire, enroll, and compel more people, because we know that, again, real estate is the greatest wealth vehicle on the planet, and there's no shortage for all of us to play. But if you don't share who you are on your website, or no pictures, or you've got no social media presence, no LinkedIn profile, people are going to be a little bit suspect, because the internet has changed the way that we do things today. So I couldn't agree more. And I truly believe that authenticity, being trustworthy, sincere, caring, and transparent will literally unleash people's careers.
Well, I think a lot of times when you mentioned, social media, presence, a lot of people feel like, having that social media presence can sometimes be a little bit of a detriment or whatever, which I think that people these days want to see that. And a lot of times people, are afraid that, well, what if they find out about something I did in my past or something like that? You have to get over that mindset, because people are going to find it whether you're out there or not. And you just have to be transparent when they do and talk about it. And just tell them the story, because I think a lot of times our past is what holds us back from being able to grow as entrepreneurs and as business owners and as people in general.
I couldn't agree. In fact, our brain thinks in three modalities. We think about past references, we think about present references, and yes, we think about future references. And what's really important is the past does not dictate, the future. It's literally that. It's the past. And we've all had ups and downs. We've all been through different economic cycles. We've all got our skeletons in the closet. Joe included, me included, you included, Danny Randazzo, doesn't matter. But what's important is we identify who we want to be today, how we want to show up today, so that we can start paving the way to tomorrow. So you can look in your rearview mirror at where you've come from in the past, but you don't drive your vehicle staring into the rearview mirror. You're going to crash. You want to look in the present and then look down the road at the future, and you'll arrive exactly where you're meant to arrive.
So I have a question in here from Jeffrey. He says, what's the number one tip for self-improvement besides repetition?
Repetition. Well, again, there's so many things that I could say. I mean, I've done 20,000 coaching calls, in fact, well in excess of that now. And I find that there's three key things that you really must check in with every day. And believe it or not, they all start with the letter S, as in, Sam. The first one is your state. That is, you got to know where you're showing up in your mind and your body. What are you focused on? What is your language like? And if you can develop your personal development routines, habits, and rituals around owning your state, that is your physiology, focus, and language, you're going to take your game to the next level. The second one is your story. Dan, you and I have talked about this before. Your story is your identity. Are you a victim to the market? Are you a victim to the broker? Are you a victim to things Trump's doing? Or are you a victor? That is, are you victorious? Because if you're operating in a story or an identity as a victim, you're never going to be able to build the real estate that you want. So now we've got you owning your state. We've got you owning your story. And yes, the third S is your strategy. That is, are you doing the right things that other rock stars in this MFIN summit are doing to go out there and close deals? Because nothing new is really happening in real estate. There's fundamentals that if you follow the roadmap, the recipe, or the blueprint, you know what? You can go out there and with a powerful state and story, you can really go out there to do what I call optimize and maximize opportunities. Would you agree?
I agree. I agree with that. All right. Well, I don't have any other questions. Oh, there's one question that just came in here from Devin. That's just as I was about to say that. So 2 of the best books that you would recommend.
Well, I can't absolutely not leave this, without recommending my 2 favorite books. The number 1 book of all time for me has been Think and Grow Rich. In fact, I keep a copy of it on my desk. I literally have read this book over 50 times. I've got the audio program. My SUV doesn't go anywhere without a bottle of water, a cell phone, and an audio, CD program or a podcast. So Think and Grow Rich, even though it was written, 100 years ago, still has tremendous fundamentals that apply to today. And the second one for multifamily is Joe's book, the best apartment investing book ever. I mean, you said it earlier today, Dan, it is like a Bible as well for people that really want to optimize and maximize. I've got my copy over on my credenza. I know you've got yours there. I appreciate you bringing it up. And the best part about that book, if I can inject a little bit of humor, is the foreword to the book. It's phenomenal. Once you read the guy that wrote it, you'll have an understanding of why I said that. Because it was me.
I was going to say, it must have been you.
That's right. Blessed and grateful to have Joe ask me. And I'm telling you, between Think and Grow Rich, if you guys pick that up in the second half of your Super Bowl this year, and Joe's book, you're going to have a phenomenal 6 months.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Trevor, I want to thank you so much for taking some time to be with us here today. Looking forward to continuing to follow you, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, as well as watching the rest of these sessions that are coming up.
Absolutely. And keep up the great work. Hats off to you and Danny, obviously Brandon, and a special shout out to Stacy. She's an absolute rock star. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right.